The Central Bank of Nigeria on Wednesday said it will redesign the 200, 500, and 1,000 naira notes and will start circulating them from December 15. The CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, announced this at a press briefing where he said the notes were redesigned following a request from the federal government. He further went on to say the new and existing currencies will remain legal tender and circulate together until January 31, 2023, when the existing currencies shall cease to be legal tender. This dramatic move took the business community and the entire nation by surprise. Joining us on this show this morning, as we discuss this latest move by the Central Bank of Nigeria, is Dr. Hassan Mahmud, Director, Monetary Policy Department of the CBN, and Ahmad Bello, CBN Director for Currency Operations. Welcome to the morning show, gentlemen. Well, Doctor, you are with us here in the studio in Lagos. Since the Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele announced the decision to withdraw the existing 200 naira, 500 naira, and 1,000 currency notes from circulation and replace them with newly designed notes, many economists have expressed concern about the astronomical costs to the CBN and the country. How much exactly do you think the redesign and the printing of the notes cost the CBN?
Thank you very much, Dr. Abati and Rufai. It's nice being here this morning. I think we should look at it from the perspective of what we intend to achieve before we start thinking of cost. I don't want to go to the extreme that central bank is not supposed to be a profit-making organization, but it's supposed to achieve certain gains. And if you tally those gains in terms of macroeconomic stability or price stability, which is its primary mandate, against the cost of doing that, then you start netting out to see that, well, the ultimate goal is being achieved. But coming directly to the issue of cost, one, the minting of currencies has been going on in Nigeria for a long time. We have the indent. Omar will speak to that we have every period that is calendared, and the redesign of the currency is not the entire bucket of the currency units that we have, or currency notes that we have. Is just the 200, 500, and 1,000 naira. This is also going to be produced locally with the NSPMC in Abuja and Lagos. And the activities that led to that, don't forget that we also have the Tadawa Inc. company that is there. So the domestication of that alone shows that there's a cost minimization that is going to come into that. But the other part of it is, what do we intend to achieve with this? These are procedures that the governor mentioned, is that in Section 2A of the CBN Act, the management of the Nigerian currency, the legal tender, is a function of the central bank. And to achieve that function, for certain purposes that the bank needs to achieve, one is to ensure that the currency integrity is sustained, the cost of maintaining or reissuing the currency or printing or the mutilated ones back into the system is also efficient. The fact that the currency is durable, usable by end users is also sustained. The other side of it, apart from the operational side, is the monetary policy side, which is most critical in essence. Monetary policy implementation, of course, the kitchen for monetary policy implementation is the banking sector. And the current monetary policy framework we have is what we call monetary aggregate framework. In essence, we control money supply to achieve price and monetary stability. And what that means is that the only currencies or money supply that you can capture, some economists have explained what we mean by currency in circulation, CIC, and the components of it, the currencies within the banking system, which are the deposit in the bank's vaults, and the currencies outside the central bank. If, from what the governor read, 85% of the currencies within the bucket of the CIC is outside of the central bank, that means the efficacy of central bank's monetary policy tool is highly impotent in the sense that the space of which we are, mopping up liquidity to affect prices is quite minimal, and the informal sector or currency outside of the system is playing a bigger role in terms of the achievement of your monetary policy expectation. In essence, issues like exchange rate, where you see currencies, hitting the market from outside of the banking system, even when we're tightening, you still see the naira depreciation. That is a substantial part of those currencies are outside of the central bank. And then you also look at issues around where you want to have a signaling function of monetary policy, which is the MPR. And you are targeting the money market rates, the OBB and the treasury bill rates. And you see in many cases, I'm sure you've observed, that you see the lower band of the monetary policy rate, that OBB rates are trading below the lower band of the monetary policy rate. That's an abnormality. So those dysfunctions within the system are largely due to the large informal sector that we have, and that has reduced the transmission mechanism of monetary policy and even the potency of monetary policy tool in achieving its objectives. So it's the two sides we're looking at: the operational side of maintenance and of currency itself as a physical in its physical form, and then the monetary policy aspect of it. Then if you bring that to our cashless policy, we started this close to 10 years. We started Lagos, Abuja, we suspended, and because issues came up, technology, accessibility, internet, and all that, gadgets that will facilitate that, alternative channels of payment. But Ruben, you agree with me that there's a lot of advancement in terms of payment system infrastructure, in terms of digital payments platforms, mobile monies. The banking system have also done significantly revolution in that space. So we see alternatives in naira just came on space. So this opportunity to strengthen the digitalization of that payment space or banking services, and then there are alternatives for you to use. So we'll reduce cash usage so that this will drive that further. Governor also mentioned issues around security and all those kidnappings and how people use those funds, and even robberies and all things that you have. If you don't have the cash at home, anybody that comes to burgle your house, unless he's going with your ATM cards.
All right, so I'd like to come to you, sir, in Abuja and ask a follow-up question. So what exactly is the value, this proposition is given at a time that when, we've got major revenue problem, a 10 trillion deficit, Moody just downgraded us, aren't there bigger issues? Because this comes at a cost. Last year, the CBN, correct me if I'm wrong, spent over 58.16 billion to print cash, and that's another add-on cost to us at this time. Why?
Good morning, Dr. Abati, and good morning, Rufai. You spoke about the reason why. Part of it is that the cost of currency management is growing from many years backward, and maybe from 2015. And it's all in the bid to reduce our cost of currency management because it involves a lot of work. Apart from the fact that you produce the notes, you have to distribute the notes to 19 hubs across Nigeria by air, and then you have to distribute them to the remaining branches by road. It's costing a lot of money, but basically CBN has taken very good initiative in terms of the fact that the development, the payment space has brought so many channels that you can use. We have the e-naira where we can use. It's an avenue for us to, it will remove the need for us to spend money in minting, distributing, storing, and destruction. Then if you look at the other angle, I think most of the cry people are having about the cost of printing is the fact that people anticipate that we are going to replace 3.2 trillion banknotes. The essence is not to do a complete replacement of it. We have an agreed intent for next year, which we will work with, which is not up to 1/3 of what we are taking out of the system. And two, we have a delivery schedule with the mint.
I'll come to you here, sir. If you can just chime on, where he stopped, where he was talking about, cost of currency maintenance and all of that.
Yeah, what Umar was emphasizing was the fact that this is not going to bring any big additional accretion to what we already planned for. He has said that there's an indent for next year. And like I also said, the currency that is going to be minted or redesigned is the higher denomination. The larger proportion of the currency units, because when we talk of seigniorage, we get the more seigniorage losses from the lower denomination, because the cost of meeting those ones is higher than the value, the intrinsic value of that note.
These are the polymer notes.
Yes, the polymer notes, which are, yes. So the point being emphasized there is that the cost is not largely going to be such a volume that will negate or net out the benefits that we want to achieve. And that's what I'm emphasizing on. What is important is how is central bank able to achieve its primary mandate, which includes other mandates of ensuring an efficient and durable currency, coupled with the fact that it's a legal tender and also used for payment settlement within the economy. So emphasis on how much will it cost the central bank to do this. We should be looking at it entirely of what do you want to achieve and what is quantify that benefit as against the cost that will bring it. But the emphasis has been that this cost is not even, something that is out of what is being budgeted for. It's not like an extra huge sums that will attract a kind of a big hole within the cost of minting the currency. And you also mentioned the fact that there are alternatives. In essence, the volume of currency that will be in the system will also reduce. Because it's a deliberate policy by the central bank that amount itself will reduce gradually. Because Governor mentioned in his speech that within 20 period, currency in circulation doubled. So that volume should increase. That means cashless is not working. So if we want to achieve that cashless, then we also need to reduce that volume of money in the system, because there are alternative channels, that you can use to settle payment, and that has gone down to even the lower cadres. You have USSDs that you can use on future phones. You have other fintechs that are providing payment channel. Telcos are also providing channels which you can do some, minor. So, and the central bank is giving licenses and opening that space for a lot of players to come into it. So we want investments are gone into those places. So we want the public to also adopt those channels of payment settlement.
Well, we'll stay with you, Dr. Mahmud, although I understand that Mr. Umar is back there. But realistically, because you were talking about total money supply, in the Nigerian economy, that has been put at about 48 trillion naira. If that is the case, why would the CBN be spending huge resources designing currency notes to pursue just the cash component of money supply of 3.2 trillion, which accounts for about 7% of total money supply when you look at the entire field? And how would this aid the effectiveness of monetary policy?
Thank you. I think on the side of the volume of money within the economy, money supply control is the main tool that the current monetary policy framework that we adopt, which is not inflation targeting, but monetary aggregate targeting, will achieve will be that, one, you are aware of the cost of managing liquidity within the system when we raise almost to mop up of those liquidities and what that costs to the central bank and by extension to the federal government, because that's supposed to be returned to the federal government. But the essence of this is, and I gave the example of how you see malfunction in MPR rate within the system. The effectiveness of monetary policy tools, which the operation target is the OBB and the interbank rates. Those are the operational target of monetary policy. Yeah, is to squeeze liquidity or mop up liquidity within the system so that either that rate goes up or pumping liquidity within the system so that that rate goes down. Those are the tools that monetary policy can use. You've seen in recent times that the inflation trajectory that we have now has monetary phenomenon. And that is because of maybe the injections and stimulus package that came in, fiscal and monetary, post-COVID. So if you have those volumes of money within the system, and in the implementation of monetary policy, there's what we call the monetary programming, where you presume that if you want to achieve a growth rate of 3.54%, this is the volume of money you need within the economy. If your volume of money within the economy is going above that, and there are no supply side issues that will bring that down in terms of competition and goods and services we have within the economy, that higher volume of money above the level that will achieve that economic growth will become inflationary. So you see inflation numbers going up, and that's why sometimes we see stagflation in a situation where GDP is going down and inflation is going up. So monetary phenomenon plays a part here. Many of the times we have said structural factors account for, our inflation trajectory, maybe because of security issues, maybe because of infrastructure. Yes, those issues come up, or maybe because the supply side rigidity that we have. But we've also come to see that, yes, there are improvements coming in from that side, but substantial part of that is also, demand driven. In the last monetary policy implementation, we said pent-up demand, and it's a global thing. Pent-up demand is driving inflation. And why we're tightening, increasing monetary policy rate, is to reduce that pent-up demand. And there was argument, so credit will be a lot more expensive, so how do you want to expand? But that was what it wants to achieve. Don't forget that if cost of lending is increasing, the cost of savings should also increase. So if you have that side coming in, it's because people look at it from just one side. If savings mobile, nobody wants to save. There are times in this country that bank doesn't want to receive your deposit because they have enough, and they have other channels where they make money. So, but we want to have that saving culture so that domestic savings mobilization is helping, economic development instead of all these borrowings that we do outside of the shores of the nation because, the banking sector is shallow. So, the control of money supply within the economy and the use of monetary policy tools, which I said the operational target. Those are the OBB. Those are the targets that central bank wants the MPR to, signal. When you tighten MPR, we want those rates to go up. And when they go up, by extension, the banking sectors, they are trading, because these are transactions between the central bank and the banks, not with the general public. But by extension, the general public, the banks are asked to feed that into the rest of the economy, and we'll start seeing the behavior or the expectations on the part of central bank that when aggregate demand shrinks, inflation numbers will start coming down. But after some times, when the supply side speaks up substantially, you start seeing the inflation numbers going down more substantially. In the last MPC that we've done, the last 3 increases in MPR, we saw that inflation numbers have been going month on month by 180 basis points. That's like 1%, 0.9%, like that. But if you see the August, September inflation number, even though it's 20.77, the month-on-month increase in that number is just 0.22. So technically, inflation numbers, month-on-month growth is declining. That means the tightening is working. But this tightening will be more efficient if a huge sum of these currencies outside of the formal system, conventional banking system, is inside the system. So you see that it takes effect very quickly. Inflation numbers have started going down in the United States, even though growth has also picked up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that leads me to the next question. I'll come to you, sir, in Abuja. The impact that this will have as regards, printing of new notes on inflation. And I say that because a lot of people are looking at those inflation numbers, and the argument they also make is that, will this have any effect? Because most of the inflation we still get are those legacy issues. Yeah. And where does it trickle down from? Food inflation and the likes, commodity inflation and other things like that. And obviously those CPI numbers go up, and that, just feeds into that inflation. And also, the Forex situation, the fact that a lot of people have a run on the currency, that's what some people are saying. In fact, we contacted some BDCs this morning, and there's a price variation, about 10% increase in the percentile between 775 to 785. That's the new benchmark now. All of a sudden, since this announcement was made, those are the arguments some people are making. What's your take on it in Abuja?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Rufai. Let me start with the movement in the exchange rate in the BDC segment of the market. Basically, the you can say that people are just panicking, trying to exchange the naira, the excess naira they have for the dollar. But then we have to remember that the BDC segment of the market is just less than 5% of the entire FX market. And what we are looking at is a situation whereby, by their mandate, the BDCs are supposed to do low-ticket transactions in terms of school fees, hospital payments, and traveling allowance. I imagine that as we progress receiving deposits from banks of naira, the BDCs themselves will be in a quagmire where they will not be able to explain their source of getting so much money. Because for example, let's say they are doing a ticket of 5,000 in a day. If they deposit 20 million today, 20 the next day, obviously they should know that that is above the exchange rate value of that $5,000 in the parallel market. They are aware, the National Executive Committee of the BDC, of the Association of Beru, the Change Operators in Nigeria, under APCON, led by Aminu Gwadabi, they have sent out a message to all their members, warning them that they should be careful, that this is the time where a lot of issues like counterfeiting, people trying to pass fake notes into the system can hit the BDCs themselves. And then there are issues around know your customer and then due diligence in terms of making sure that the person you are dealing with is there and that they enjoin them to keep records of all their transactions because they know ultimately it will come to that. On the second leg of your question about inflation, the governor responded that we don't want to speculate at this moment. We want to wait and see what happens between now and the end of the fourth quarter. But I believe that the ability of the central bank to have a complete overview of the cash in transaction, currency in circulation within the banking system will give it advantage to make proper planning exercise.
Well, at this point, Alhaji Umar and Dr. Mahmud, we take a short break. When we return, the conversation will continue. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the morning show. Here on the Arise News channel, we still have our guest with us in the studio, Dr. Hassan Mahmud, Director of Monetary Policy Department of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and Mr. Ahmad Bello Umar, Director of Currency Operations, also of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And we've been discussing the decision of the Central Bank to redesign the 200 naira, 500 naira, and 1,000 naira notes. Now, Dr. Mahmud, let me come to you. There's also the issue of the timing. Christmas is just around the corner, and Nigerians spend a lot of money, and they need access to cash during that season. Also, the elections are barely 4 months away. In the CBN's assessment, is this the best time to change currency notes without causing massive disruptions and upheavals in the economy?
Thank you. I think a lot of these scenarios were discussed at the central bank level of the implications of what we're doing, the implications of the timing. So it was not like just a discrete something that went into through a lot of thinking and permutation and simulation of what would be the outcomes. Governor mentioned when he did the announcements that we have a period of close to 100 days, which is almost 3 months and above for this to crystallize. But like I've mentioned earlier, we also have this emphasis that we want to really go cashless. So sometimes your policy measures are more impactful when the environment is more critical for the adoption of that. And what do I mean by this? There are other channels of which you can make payment. Even if you want to buy RAM or you want to buy Christmas stocking, there are other channels you can pay. now, and they are in abundance. We have organizers now that can make payments with their future phones. We have market operators that have other channels of mobile. You see a lot of adverts by banks of how you can make payments, and so those channels are there. So for the fact that, and let me also give you some good numbers. Of this, maybe 2.7 trillion or 85% of the currency we are saying that is outside the bank, more than 90% of those currencies are high denomination. And if they are high denomination, the proportion of people that hold them, and also this high volume that is outside, my guess would be that the holders of those high volumes will be less than 10% of the population. So you see, the people that are holding 10,000, 100,000, 300,000, they are not the real the fish that we're targeting here. What we're looking at is those that have billions, and if you imagine somebody going to a bank to change, now we do deposit. And don't forget that this is not just for you to take your money to the bank and exchange. The money should go to your account. So if it goes to your account, you can use your account, your mobile apps and everything to make payments, your e-naira to make payments. So you don't necessarily need the cash. Even if you want to do elections and you want to mobilize wars and communities, send them money digitally. You can send money to their bank accounts. And if they're going to pay for transportations, we have e-nairas at filling stations now. So the transformation of that payment system landscape has been phenomenal. So why waste those resources in technology and infrastructure that people are not using? So maybe this will be an opportunity for, a more adoption of those options, because if you are not really pushed sometimes, to do something, change is extremely difficult, particularly in an environment where, literacy and education are a bit limited. There's that skepticism of how will my money not get lost on the phone. But, a lot of campaign and sensitization has gone on board. So the timing, as far as we are concerned, is well calculated. However, it's not cast in stone. We see how things turn out, and then the bank will respond appropriately to that. But I think the time frame given, the currency, new redesigned currency will come in 15th of December. You still have over a month, to get to the end of when it's not a longer legal tender. But what we normally see in Nigeria is a situation where people will wait until 25th of December. And you see 1,000 people going to the bank at the same time. That, it's ending on Friday, it's ending on Saturday. And we've seen it with this national identity card, BVN, voters card. We've seen that, behavior on the part of the vote. I think a lot of sensitization will go into this, and we expect people to start. You can even start today. Take your monies back to the bank and put in your account, instead of doing the last minute rush.
All right. I'll come to you in Abuja, Doctor. I mean, let's talk logistics. I should imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong on my assumptions, that by now, the CBN probably thought over this. You're locked and ready, to deploy. Probably the currencies are ready somewhere. Everything is ready at this time, because of the logistics to avoid those long mile queues and things like that in the banking. And also, the bank have the robust IT infrastructure network, because when we talk about internet banking and the likes and all of that, uptick in digital transactions, especially in urban centers, it is now being hampered greatly by this thing called the Japa mentality, where most IT units of banks are probably somewhere in Canada. You're laughing, Doctor. And it has really impacted on the download as regards tech infrastructure. So what are the considerations as regards that? So I also understand you have, companies set up to move this money around and the likes and things like that. What are all the logistical interplay?
Okay, thank you, Rufai. On the part of central bank, we don't have a serious impact of the JAPA phenomenon. Our IT teams are working, our infrastructure are in top shape. And on the logistics side, remember that we have 8 denominations that are in circulation currently. Only 3 of those denominations are affected by the redesign. So the bulk of the other 5 are not affected in this exercise. That is 100 naira, 50, 10, 20, 20, 10, and 5. And those denominations are not going to be exchanged, redesigned during this period. So they remain in circulation. The bulk of the ones that are affected are the 200, 500, and 1,000. And what we are having is a situation where customers are enjoying to deposit the money into their bank accounts. It's not like CBN will open and exchange a cash cage where they will be doing it directly to the public. We want people to take their money to their banks, and then from there we'll do it. On our part, the mint that is going to produce the redesign notes is fully prepared. The quantity that will be produced is known to them, and we are not envisaging any problem in terms of distribution. The way we distribute is through our 19 hubs, which we do by air, and from there we distribute the other places that are now covered by air through road. So because we have 37 locations, and we believe that with the outreach that CBN has, there is hardly any difficulty that we envisage when it comes to that. And let me reiterate that we are not replacing 3.23 trillion in this exercise. We are only removing the excess that is outside bank, and it only affects 3 denominations. We are ready. The various stakeholders will be engaged. Banks, we are waiting for banks. That's why management said that banks are free to bring deposits to central bank even on a Saturday. So they can bring their deposit to us from Monday to Saturday for processing. And I want to just reiterate that based on our intent for this year, we have received substantially our deliveries from the mint. So if we have anything that is outstanding affecting those denominations, we'll stop that so that we don't produce something that will turn to waste. But for the remaining 5 denominations that are still available, they will still be circulating alongside the new ones that will be launched by the president on the 15th of December. We have anticipated some of the challenges that people could have in the rural areas, but there are so many places where people can exchange their money to the nearest bank. I know maybe some banks are not readily available in every community, but there will be a neighboring community where you can do that. And then you can go to a POS operator who can be able to credit, who will take your money and then credit your account. So we don't anticipate any problem. Everything being equal, we expect that it will be a smooth sailing. And then from the 15th to the 31st, when we finally start, after the launch by Mr. President, when then we'll start watching the performance of the new notes, and then up to when they will cease to be, the old 200, 500, and 1,000 will cease to be legal tender on 31st of January 2023. So I don't anticipate any problem, actually.
Thank you, Alhaji Umar. Let me come back to you, Dr. Mahmud. There's this concern about the informal sector and the rural areas that will require a different strategy altogether. I think the CBN governor alluded to that, talking about token coins and all of that, to ensure that people can exchange their old news for new ones. So what is the strategy in place to ensure that there is no chaos and uncertainty in the country, and that people in the rural areas are not unduly disadvantaged?
Thank you. I think Umar also touched on that briefly. And I said earlier that the volume where the real shock is going to be coming is when holders are less than 5–10% of the population of these cards that we're looking at. These rural areas that we're taking, the volume we're expecting there, or the chaos we're expecting there, is minimal. But in the event that that even builds up, because since it's informal, we don't have the correct statistics, they are just our estimations or guess. Umar also mentioned that, we have agent banking now, where you go to POS and make transactions. You can still, we'll make arrangements of how there's a committee that has been set up now, headed by the Deputy Governor Operations, to look at the modalities of effectively, having a seamless implementation of this so that we don't have this chaos we are looking at. And that's why I said the bank is very strategic about this, is well calculated in terms of how it wants to achieve this. So in the event that we see those volumes coming up, there are alliances we can do with partners. There are a lot of players in this field now. The POS providers can have a link with a bank, and when they collect to a particular volume, they take to the banks. But like we said, these are going to be tied to accounts, account holders. When we did, and this is also going to bring a lot of people into the system. When we did the targeted credit facility during the COVID, over 400 billion was distributed to the general public. And you keep imagining how that money going to, and one criteria for you to get that fund is having a BVN. So you see millions of people running to do BVN because there's a facility on ground for you to grab. And everybody that collected that money had a BVN. So you see big enrollment. So sometimes you look at the psyche of your people, you look at the structural formation of your economy, and use those challenges as opportunity to drive some of your policy goal. Indeed, this will bring a lot of more people into the conventional banking space, and also drive further this our financial inclusion initiative by getting these people having accounts and also having access to financial services and financial management tools. So in terms of those areas, we don't, like my colleague said, we don't think the big shock will come from those places, but in the event that they come, there are measures on ground where they can use all those other channels to bring in their funds. And the fact that 5 other denominations are still available for you to use, transactions in those rural areas are not in millions, they're in thousands and hundreds of naira. So we expect that to be a bit seamless.
Right. I'd like to also ask about this, age-old problem of newly minted naira notes that we only see at event centers, but we never get to see these freshly minted notes, in the hands of people, How is that these notes only go to the hands of revelers? How are we going to address this malaise? I'm talking to you, Director of Currency Operations. Why is it that your notes, you find them only at event centers, not in the hands of people that want them?
Thank you, Rufai. It has been a cause for concern for the central bank about the dearth of clean notes, and it's part of the reason why we are doing the redesign. But then we have recognized the fact that mints don't usually get around as it should go around among the general populace. It only goes to what some banks call valued customers. And then the other area is where we notice that some people have even engaged in the business of working this money. If you recall recently, last month or so, maybe August, we had a sting operation in collaboration with security agencies where we raided in Kano, where there was an arrest of about 14 people who are engaged in hawking the naira, which is an offense under the CBN Act. On our part, the CBN over the years have come up with many initiatives to track the activities of the absence of proper circulation of mint notes in the system. First of all, we have a cash activity reporting portal, which is a dashboard that gives us an idea of all the cash that is in circulation in Nigeria that is held by a bank. And that is why it is more important now that we should have the 85% that is not in the bank to be in a bank, so that we'll be able to have a proper visual control over it. The other aspect is that CBN has come up with what we call a banknote tracking system for us to be able to track when we issue money. We issue money to big supermarkets and shops so that you'll be able to distribute it to people around who do business with them, and then to get change, because change was a problem. We discovered that some of the people who collect this money end up selling it out to some people. So we came up with the initiative of the banknote tracking system, whereby we can track the content of a box, which is about 10,000 single notes in a box of any denomination of notes that we have. We'll be able to tell which note was issued to which bank, and we will be able to know if it's moved across Nigeria. Regardless of which branches it passes through, we'll be able to tell that this note was issued to a bank, and that bank moved the money to this place and this place, so that we'll be able to track the source of people selling or hawking these notes in the system. We are hoping that by the time we get to where we want to be, when people adopt cashless and stop the habit of spray money in parties and so on, which many people have ingeniously defended as a cultural thing in Nigeria, that they need to spray money. We hope that the attitude of people will change, and then we'll be able to have clean notes. And that's the reason why, because of the kind of misuse that people put the notes to, we have difficulty when we come to process the notes to put them back into circulation. A lot of them get bad because of the way people trample on them on the floor, and and the way people handle the money. We will continue with our campaign. We'll engage our stakeholders to see how best we can stem the tide. If we cannot eliminate it completely, we want to minimize it to the lowest level. Thank you.
I get your point, but Naira plunking, defacing the Naira is an offense under the EFCC, under the CBN Act, sections 15 and section 21. So I don't know why the CBN now talks about hope. But in any case, I have a question for Dr. Mahmud, because we have just about 3 minutes to go. The EFCC, shortly after the announcement of new currency notes, said it stands ready to deploy operatives in banking halls to monitor huge lodgements. Well, first and foremost, isn't the EFCC planning to stage a melodrama, given that it's the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, the FIU, that the banks send returns to on big ticket lodgements or transactions? And what would the CBN do to ensure that the attempt to monitor money laundering is not abused or exaggerated?
Thank you. I don't want to be the spokesperson of EFCC, but I will just talk on the side at what the bank wants to achieve. Indeed, we are not living outside of the realities of our economy. We know shady deals will happen. As this is going on now, don't be surprised that there are people trying to find ways to arbitrage or to do some funny things and create some kiosks and say, oh, bring your money here, bring 1 million, we'll deposit 850 for you. Those kind of things are not impossibilities, and I know EFCC is 100% ready for that. What we have emphasized, Rufai just mentioned this morning some numbers that are coming in with Naira already depreciating because of, even though it's not the market that we anchor. But you see, those behaviors are one, speculative, panicking, arbitrage, or some fraudulent activities going on. But you'll come to a stage that when the time is getting closer, even the BTC guys will not take Naira from you because they don't have where to go and put the Naira. So, and you start seeing the Naira appreciating again from that behavior, which has nothing to do with demand and supply or any economic fundamental. So I believe EFCC will have assessed this. We are working in collaboration with all the relevant agencies within Nigeria, regulatory and non-regulatory, even market operators. And then EFCC will have also looked at the possibilities, some of which I just guessed, and position themselves with the tools and the professionalism and expertise they have to address those likely loopholes that people will want to explore for some ulterior motives.
All right, we'll like to say a very big thank you to you for your time, sir. And we'll also say a very big thank you to you, out there in Abuja. We've got two great guests from the CBN this morning, to talk more about the new policy of the redesign of the Naira. So that date, keep it in mind, 15th of December. Yeah, it will be launched, the new currency. And the termination date for the current Naira you have in your hands, the 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira note, ceases to be a legal tender on the 31st of January 2023. All right, thank you guys so much for your time.